Hello everyone and welcome to the importance of responsible AI. I'm Oliver Quayle from the Akriti Group. I run the Evo platform, which is the AI powered platform that underpins all of the solutions at the Akriti Group. And I want to bring together some fascinating perspectives on what I see as one of the biggest challenges facing organizations today. How do we harness AI's potential while doing it responsibly? And so I'm delighted to be joined by two very special guests. Tom Grundy from one of our customers, the Hyde Group, and Akriti Mehta from one of our partners, Microsoft. So would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tom Grundy. I'm General Counsel of the Hyde Group, looking after legal and corporate governance affairs across a large group that provides community, housing, and other services to about 350,000 customers across the UK.
Hi, I'm Akriti. I am a data and AI solutions architect at Microsoft. I'm also one of the responsible AI champions for Microsoft UK.
So it's great. Thank you for joining me. It's great to have a customer and our partner. So let's start with the key principles of responsible AI. And they are transparency, accountability, security, fairness, and human-centric design. So for transparency, it's to understand how AI decisions are being made. Accountability is clear ownership and governance structures around it. Security is robust data protection, like Axis's own three-tier security model. And fairness is making sure that AI works equitably for all users. And then finally, that human-centric design is making sure that AI empowers people and doesn't replace them. And so the reason why we're having this conversation is because our own research has shown some really, really interesting findings. That while 50% of organizations are already using AI, nearly half of them remain concerned about data security. And perhaps most telling, about a third are using it without the proper governance and oversight. And so really that gap between adoption and responsible implementation is what we want to explore today. And so I want to make this a real conversation about the practical challenges that you're facing and how people are solving them today. So why don't we start with you, Tom? As a general counsel, you're probably seeing AI from a really unique angle, right? You've got the business opportunity and the legal risks. But what's the biggest challenge you're grappling with today?
I'm going to focus on the legal practice dimensions because, as you said, Ollie, it can be viewed from an almost unlimited set of angles across a complex business. But from a legal practice point of view, including how we relate both legal and governance to the rest of the organisation, there's a plethora of challenges. I know you've asked for one. I'm going to pick two, I'm afraid. Sorry about that. Because they go hand in hand. The first one for me is the challenge of taking it step by step, not getting carried away, flying off with wild aspirations immediately, but also not getting stuck in the sort of almost unlimited possibilities, and culturally taking members of the team along building skill sets that really are needed to be the foundation to unlock the possibilities. And then I don't think it can be said without the other side of the coin, which is the immediate ethical challenges that you've alluded to, which no doubt we'll talk more about.
Yeah, okay, so you give me two, but I guess what I'd love to drill down in is, I mean, do you actually know when AI is being used across your organization? Because I imagine that's both a governance and potentially legal challenge for you right at the moment.
It's a great question, and there's a correct answer, which is we, like all companies with a good governance framework, we have an acceptable user framework that I'm not best to speak to, but that's what governs what people should and shouldn't be doing to use AI. But your question quite rightly relates to, but what's actually going on? How do we how do we encourage people to become literate in AI, perhaps exploring it in their own lives, perhaps bringing it in within that acceptable user framework, so that they can get to a point of then embracing it, but without it undermining data governance, without it undermining, I think you mentioned disclosure. It's a great point. So there is a risk that landscape gets much more complicated. In fact, it's already here.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've raised something there about when your clients might be using AI to produce information that they give you as well, so that you might not even know about that, and that's a really interesting perspective on it. And really here at Kriti, everything's always ever evolving. But from your experience working with organizations, how common is that lack of visibility into AI usage?
Honestly, This is one of the common challenges we have. And that's one of the reasons where people find it very difficult to trust the outcomes as well. So I think the transparency that you mentioned, or the responsibility principle, becomes very important here. When we're using AI and we let our customers know, for example, you're chatting with a chatbot, and the chatbot clearly says this chat is, AI generated. But if you want to reach out to a human in the loop, here's how you raise a ticket or you reach out. Um, or you say this answer, from the chatbot, as you see on the internet these days, is AI generated, and then here's the sources you can reach out to. So we're putting these mitigations in place where people are able to understand where the AI is being used, and also stating the sources so that they gain confidence that, okay, it's reading of so and so source. If I can read more about it, or if this seems to be the right source to get the information from, then this is in the right ballpark. And it makes the confidence go higher in the AI. But until we sort of solve this challenge at all layers, we've got a lot of people out there who trial it out, but a lot of apprehension on using it for final real world scenarios, because they're not quite sure till when the realm of AI is under the covers. And I think the more and more transparent we become, the easier the adoption will get.
Yeah, and that's something we're hearing from a lot of customers, right? Whether it's our customers or our customers' customers, clients want fast, effective service that you can get with AI, but you can't compromise on the accuracy or professional standards, right? So how do you navigate that tension? Do you tell your clients you're using AI tools, Tom?
That transparency is going to be a paramount dimension to making everything successful in the future, because the professional duties of for instance, solicitor or other legal professionals, they will continue. There's a lot of guidance. There's a lot of information out there about how to continue to navigate those professional obligations in the context of AI. But really, they can be boiled down to, look, just as it doesn't matter what pen you use to write your advice, you can use these tools. They're not going to diminish your responsibilities. Where there may be a tension emerge is if clients are keen to get the benefits of greater efficiency, faster workflows from AI, and are willing to accept a degree of risk or inaccuracy potentially behind that. And that could be interesting when it comes to the imperative of maintaining those professional standards for solicitors and other legal professionals. So running through all of those challenges will be that transparency, that clarity of when AI hasn't been used. And that's what we're seeing coming from, for instance, panel law firms that we work with that provide work for us. They might be very clear that they've used an AI tool to generate a review of something. And then we can take a view on that. And I haven't seen warning signs, shall we say, that relationship, that accountability and transparency is being eroded, but we're watching it very carefully.
Yeah, that's a great expression. That the watching it very carefully seems to be what a lot of people are thinking, isn't that right, Akriti? How do you see the need to organize or to manage organizations balance between that speed but also the verification in terms of technical, but also the governance that underpins it?
I think it's very important to have the governance, to have the confidence in the AI and the outcome it's producing. The more people are assured that the outcome is coming from the right sources, the more people are able to trace how they've arrived at the answer that's been generated by AI, the more that they're able to understand that, okay, AI generate the answer, and then there was a human in the loop that validated, and they have a final product that's actually, is AI assisted for speed, but also human validated, the more confident that they're going to get. So you have to maintain that balance of speed for AI to do the end-to-end automation with the governance in terms of tool, in terms of human in loop, to make sure that we've got the accurate answers and the confidence of adoption that goes along with it. Having said that, a lot of AI that's available open source. What's being done is that from the common sort of cloud platforms that are providing these models, they're baking in governance from the get-go. It's no more security and governance as an afterthought. It's right from the point where you deploy your models for usage in the AI. You've got governance to make sure that you can see how the AI is being used, telling you the trend of prompts, of misuse, of the right guidance use, or telling you where the users need to be educated. So we're trying to address it from a security and governance first perspective from the get-go.
I've got it, and I think this is a really good time now to really sort of deep dive into that governance and accountability. I know we haven't got very long, but I think it's been really nice to really deep dive on a few of these things. So Tom, you mentioned transparency with your clients, and I imagine that the legal profession, you've got specific obligations around disclosure. How do you handle that practically? I'm really keen to know.
It's a great question. I think where we have legal cases or we have customers with their requests under GDPR, or indeed where we look at making assessments, whether it's an Equality Act assessment on an action that we're taking as any public organisation would need to. All of those involve pulling together information, and we have a whole range of methods that we employ, ranging from the imperative person-to-person discussion to bring out an account of what's going on, and I don't think that'll ever be lost, right through to more automated or automatic e-discovery tools. There's a whole range. What's the interesting question that AI poses is where it is creating new content, even if it's just from existing content, but reordering, reassimilating it. That obviously creates a challenge to bring together the information. So that's one piece. And again, the accountability and transparency works in all different directions. So it goes from the advisor to the client, whether that's an internal relationship or an external relationship. It goes from an organization to its customers and the public. It goes indeed from a legal team to the court, to which to whom it owes a duty. So it's in all different directions. I'm afraid it's hard to pin down. But as Akriti touched on, the imperative is the accountability that comes from, if AI generates an answer or a suggested solution or any piece of work, the ability to look through that and see where it's come from, so it can then be verified. And in that way, it is in many ways similar to an assistant that's on a learning journey, whose work you need to verify 100%. The interesting question is, will we get to a point where that 100% verification exercise diminishes down at all, or there are contexts in which you're willing to accept that lower risk, which is why it's closely connected with inclusion, really, because those opportunities for those tasks often provide people at an earlier stage in their career with the ability to get involved in something with a set of with a safety net, with help. And so the more that these tools emerge, it will be interesting to see how we fulfill our moral duty to replace that learning with something even better for those colleagues who are coming through, as we all are continually learning.
Yeah, it's a really important point about your basically your professional obligations from end to end, but specifically from a systems perspective, Akriti, can you actually build that level of transparency and auditability into AI implementations so that you can track what the AI did and why?
Certainly, and we're doing that. So we're starting out by releasing a transparency report about our own products and AI offerings, giving everybody a view of how they're working under the covers. And similarly, when we work with our customers for their AI implementation, we've got tools and processes in place that help you trace, uh, right, go from the question asked down to how the response was generated and then sort of revert back all the way. So we've got mechanisms now in place coming to address this transparency challenge and make sure that we've got the entire trace available for everybody to see of how the agent is working under the covers. And we believe every system is has its limitations. Human brain has its limitations. So the more you can trace, the better you can understand the chain of thought, and understand if there is a need for mitigation. So we're seeing an increasing trend with automation of, we started out with an era where we answered certain questions and did some researches with these AI models, and now it's getting on to more agents who can do some automated task based on the findings they have. But just to address what Tom just touched about, the risks in the area. So we've identified, actually there are so many litigations out there. There is the UK AI bill, there is the EU AI Act coming up this year. And what we've done is that we've complied with these acts and the risk level identified and the right mitigations to make sure that we are compliant with them, and the customers that we help build out the AI are compliant with them by baking in these tools and these risk mitigations within the AI build outs that are done from the platform side.
Yeah, I mean, just to sort of see it, try and pull that all together, I think that transparency and auditability into AI implementations themselves is actually also used to help improve the end-to-end experience. So the auditability throughout that system is key, not just for customers to know what AI has decided and why, but also to continually improve that practice. But I'm really curious. I'm going to ask sort of a double question here, Tom. Right? When it comes to practical applications, where are you seeing AI provide real value, and where are you most cautious? So, like on both ends of that scale, where's quick best value, and where are you most cautious?
Sure. So one thing I'm really excited about is where we can use AI to identify trends across large data sets. So as particularly in-house lawyers, we're used to drilling down into the detail of case by case and understanding where you stack up those cases together, of course, and monitor them. But looking at thousands of cases over several years, looking at thousands of documents within them to draw out trends, themes, lessons learned, ways that we can improve is something that would just take a vast amount of human hours. And that is something that we are working on to create really useful information. It only works because the resulting information is not legal advice. And again, it has to be entirely capable of transparent interrogation. So if it suddenly reveals, here's a trend, we need to be able to go and verify that. Otherwise, there are serious risks of bias and what have you. So that transparency and clarity is really important. Where I'm therefore most cautious is that second point about bias emerging. We run an experiment where if we tackle a really difficult, interesting problem, and we work our way through it as a team using people and advisors, we then throw it to an AI without using any confidential information, bit of a war game, if you will. I think we've done it 3 times, and I'm sad to say it's currently 0 for 3. Hasn't managed to solve that problem, which I'm sure advisors will be keen to hear about. But we're therefore interested in where it's inaccurate, where it picks up on biases to give perhaps not quite the right answer. But I would be reliably, correctly perhaps corrected to say that's because we need to adjust how we're using it. It's not that it's wrong. It's about the application, and that caution against bias or error is still very much there.
Yeah, and it's a great example, right? Where you've got thousands and thousands of records summarized into just a very small number of words or a small outcome. That potential is huge, right? You do want to see that verification. So, Akriti, how do organizations validate AI generated insight? What's the technical approach to ensure that accuracy while maintaining efficiency?
That's a great question. So, starting out with just what Tom was touching on, when we're addressing the other arm, which is training the models and or using AI and looking at the quality of data that goes in, we've got mechanisms in place or tools in place to identify data set biases, make sure that the spread is equal so that the insight generated is from a fair input to begin with, because data quality going in, it's like human brain. Whatever you teach the human brain, they then learn to answer the subsequent questions based on that learning. Similarly, for AI, the quality of input that we given, we monitor that with tools as well. And that bias-free input mechanism helps us to then have further insights generated, be of better outcome and better quality, to hopefully answer those questions that we're looking the answers for. In terms of addressing the quality of output generated, we've definitely got evaluation sets which work at real time, at runtime, or even before we put the AI out there in front of real world people to have this conversation or answer real world questions. We have simulated environments wherein we test by these sort of evaluation tools to make sure that the quality of answer generated is indeed good enough for real world end users to consume. We try and make sure that we assess how close the answer generated is to the sources that it's reading from, and that becomes the primary source of ascertaining the how close it is, and making sure that it's not hallucinating, diverting from the facts that it's read out of. And so once it's generated answers closer to the sources it's read, it's mostly on the right track. We also have other mechanisms where we've got known answers, or our users sort of provide us with something that we call as golden data set, which is their known sort of question answers or rules based on which they currently manually do the processes, and we ensure that the AI outcomes are actually following that golden data set, or the rules that are manually being followed. And it's not a one will fits all kind of answer. But yeah, these are some of the common ways that we're working with out there for the solutions we're building out.
Excellent, excellent. I wanted a quick change of gears here, right? We've talked about, I think you've both mentioned the human element, right, in what you've been saying. And I think that this is a chance to just do a little bit on that. And so, I mean, Tom, how do you handle the staff concerns, maybe people worried about their roles or changing roles or job security? What's been your approach to that, Tom?
In a legal services context, I'm not yet seeing tools coming forward that are challenging legal professional roles. As to whether that changes, I will leave to smarter minds. But my challenge is actually getting everyone sufficiently AI literate or experimenting, or in many cases, helping educate people to use other digital tools that serve as the cornerstone, the building blocks for them to be able to then embrace it as a tool. That's my real challenge. At that point, it becomes something to empower people rather than something to be concerned about. And actually, as we use a limited array of AI tools to speed up individual tasks, it's always has to be verified at the moment by a person, which in many ways creates work. And it also acts as, how do we deal with those errors and so forth. It really provides the answer to how we mitigate that risk. Is it anything clever? Well, no, it's analogous directly to an intern is helping with a task and it needs to be very carefully checked. Intern is probably a bad example, but someone perhaps without legal qualification or at the beginning of their career journey is helping and it has to be verified. I would say it's analogous to that.
Excellent. And so that's really the human angle. I'm going to just fast forward now and think a bit more broader about the industry perspectives and standards, right? I know we've digged into a lot of different areas here, but this conversation is really highlighting something really important, that the responsible AI isn't just about the technology, it's about the governance, the transparency, accountability of those systems all around it. And I think we've got some really good input on that. But Akriti, what should organizations look for to know that they're implementing AI responsibly? Are there standards or frameworks that you think that can help, and how can you guide our viewers into addressing that?
Certainly. So we've got a lot of coming in to this arena, a lot of standards and frameworks stepping in. The most common ones are the ISO 42001 standard, and we've got the bills that we talked about earlier, and these standards and framework help sort of build out AI in the way where they're set out to deal with these incoming and evolving risk guideline mechanisms.
Yeah, I mean, I know ISO 42001 pretty thoroughly because it's specifically for AI management systems and it covers exactly what we've been talking about today, right? Governance, transparency, risk management. Proud to say the reason why I know is because Access were one of the first to go through and be fully certified through that process. So, I think it's really, really important that, we can stay on the forefront of innovation, but you have to make sure that you're being responsible at the same time. So we're big advocates of that. So Tom, from your perspective, managing legal and business risk, what questions should leaders be asking about their AI vendors or their internal teams?
So we have a really thorough process as we procure systems to give assurance to ultimately to our board, but in the first instance to our technical teams. And I think both have summarised some of the standards. I won't go into those. I think if I address your question more in the sort of day to day, and it happens through those systems and that fundamental assurance through governance and the rules that we set for the organisation, how we audit for those compliance of those, but also from my point of view, the verification task by task by people. So as we said before, we're not quite there yet where we take the output as given. There's still a risk there, right? You're by one person carrying out work and another checking it. You don't eliminate all chances of mistakes, just the same as someone verifying something that's come out of a digital tool. So it's again an ongoing question for careful thought, because I think we are expecting as AI develops that the danger will be is if it travels ahead of our ability to keep up with verifying, or indeed to your earlier question, Ollie, what if you don't know that underlying information has been generated? And similarly, what if information or work has been very carefully constructed and authored, but it just as happens in organizations where teams collaborate, if another team takes that information and wants a more succinct version of it and decides to use an AI tool and introduces issues into it. So we might see a growth of the amount of time that people spend having created content, it having been manipulated by AI, then almost having to repeat the task and refine back that piece of work. And that seems highly inefficient because it's gone sort of round in a circle. So we're watching out for these emerging behaviours, some of which is a sort of systematic or systemic risk management. Others are good sense, really, and day-to-day careful practice.
Brilliant. We're really up against it for time, I'm afraid. So I'm gonna just talk about some of the key takeaways and think about the future outlook here, right? It's been such a really valuable conversation. Let me capture what I think to be the key principles that we've covered here, right? From Tom and the legal business perspective, we're seeing that the visibility really is crucial. You need to know when and how AI is being used, and professionally, transparency isn't an option. It's a duty of care. The human verification oversight is still absolutely essential. And while AI can provide massive value in analysis, the risk, you've really got to make sure there are proper safeguards to make sure you're aware of how that analysis is taking place. And staff must be included, and communications are critical for success. And then when you marry that then with the technical side, your responsible AI requires systematic approaches and governance frameworks like the ISO one we talked about that really make sure that we're all being held accountable throughout that process while innovating. And I think one of the things we mentioned the most was transparency. You need auditability to build into these systems from the ground up, not only so they can be improved, but so that you can see why decisions were made. And I think my final takeaway from this is that these systems should be designed to augment human decision making, not replace them. And I think that's sort of what I've taken away from this really interesting chat. Thank you both for such great discussion. Thank you for everyone who joined us today. The key message is clear: that AI potential is enormous, but realizing that potential requires great responsibility, and through that we need transparency. So let's make sure that we keep people at the centre as we move forward. All of the stuff we've discussed and the resources are available on the accessgroup.com website. Thank you very much for your time, and thanks again, Tom and Akriti. It's been absolutely brilliant to have you here.